meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Chase?
Present.
Ms. Decatur? Here. Ms. Egan?
Here.
Ms. Hazard?
Here.
Ms. Healy?
Here.
Mr. McCosker?
Here.
Ms. Young?
Present.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then color guard presentation by Brook Point High School Navy JROTC.
Forward. March. Colors. Halt. Left base. March. Colors. Halt. Carry. Colors. Ready. Cut. One step back. March. Breathe in. Colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry. Colors. Ready. Cut. Order. Colors. Ready. Cut. Right base. March. Forward. March.
Okay, before I ask for a motion to approve the agenda, Madam Clerk, have we revised the agenda to include the item we discussed at the work session? Okay, well, could I have a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of an item, Ms. Hazard?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda. I would ask that we add an agenda item to approval to extend the feasibility period for 30 additional days pursuant to a contract of sale dated February 10th, 18 for an additional deposit of $25,000.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion for approval of the agenda as amended. Would that be added as 10.04, Madam Clerk, under action?
Yes, that's where I would put
Is
it.
that where you'd like it? I can put it wherever you would like it.
That's where I,
Yes, I think that works for Ms. Hazard. And Ms. Egan, you okay with that?
Yep.
All right, so all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Before we come to the awards, I would like to recognize the Brook Point High School Navy JROTC members who are with us tonight. That's Cadet Grayson, Cadet Summers, Cadet Rugama, and Cadet Martinez. Their instructors at Brook Point are Captain James O'Keefe and Petty Officer Michael Tucci. Thank you for being with us this evening and presenting the parties. All right, that brings us to awards. I'd like to invite Ms. Sarah Crane, Secondary Literacy Facilitator for the school division, to the podium for a presentation of an award.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Benson. I am pleased to present you the finalists of our Stafford County Schools Spelling Bee. These two students competed on March 17th at the 13th Annual Freelance Star Regional Spelling Bee. First, I'd like to recognize Chiamaka Honora, and thanks to lovely weather, etc., Chiamaka, being the outstanding overachiever that she is, I think, involved in band assessments. So accepting her award on her behalf is going to be Ms. Ann Adams. Chiamaka is a student, an 8th grade student at T. Benton Gale Middle School, and she correctly spelled cacao in the division spelling bee to earn her place as one of Stafford's top 2 spellers. And please join me in giving this award representationally to Ann Adams on Chiamaka's behalf. All right, and then secondly, I'm going to see if traffic has been kind. Has Rachel Staggers made it to the auditorium? We have a contingency plan for this as well. Rachel Staggers has been here several times before, but she's a 6th grade student at A.G. Wright, and she won the division spelling bee by correctly spelling the word soba. And Robin Lloyd is going to be accepting Rachel's award on her behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Crane. We have several proclamations this evening. The first is for School Library Month. Ms. Young's going to read that for us. And if there are any librarians in the audience, would you please stand so we can recognize you?
Wow. Thank you. Wow, what a nice sight. Proclamation to designate April 2018 as School Library Month. Whereas school library programs ensure that students and staff are effective users of ideas and information, and whereas the school librarian's role is to provide the leadership and expertise necessary to ensure that the library program is an integral part of the instructional program of the school, and whereas the school board has entrusted the librarian in each school to teach the skills of locating and using information through traditional resources and new technologies, to provide literature appreciation activities, and to guide and encourage content and recreational reading to every student. And whereas school library programs contribute to the individual growth and development of all students while fostering both excellence and equity. I like that word, equity, in education. And whereas the school librarians of Stafford County have dedicated themselves to work for quality library programs for all students. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that April 2018 is School Library Month in all of the public schools of Stafford County. The school board calls upon school administrators, teachers, students, and citizens to recognize and support this action and to participate throughout the month of April in the celebration of School Library Month, adopted by the Stafford County School Board this 27th day of March 2018.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. You're welcome to stay as long as you want.
And thank you for our little gifts.
Yeah, thank you for the jars of
that.
happiness.
I'm allergic to peanuts.
You're spoiling us.
Yeah.
That brings us to our next proclamation.
When do the cookies come, though?
Christmas,
Oh,
Christmas.
I'm waiting for the cookies.
You're on a diet.
I'm on a diet, but my kids are going to eat them. They love those cookies. Are awesome. I'm sorry. Go ahead, madam.
All right, that brings us to the next proclamation, which is for National Autism Awareness Month. Mrs. Decatur is going to read this for us. And do we have any autism teachers with us this evening? If you stand, we'd love to recognize you.
Thank you for everything you do. Whereas April has been designated as National Autism Awareness Month, and whereas autism is a pervasive developmental disorder affecting the social, learning, and behavioral skills of those affected by it, and whereas autism occurs in all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups and is 4 times more likely to occur in boys than in girls, and whereas as more and more health professionals become proficient in diagnosing autism, more children are being diagnosed on the autism spectrum, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 68 children. And whereas, while there is no cure for autism, it is well documented that if individuals with autism receive treatment early in their lives, it is often possible for those individuals to lead significantly improved lives. And whereas Stafford County Public Schools provides ongoing training to educate parents and professionals about autism and its effects. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Stafford County School Board hereby designates April 2018 as Autism Awareness Month, adopted by the Stafford County School Board this 27th day of March 2018.
Thank you, Mrs. Decatur, and thank you, teachers, for joining us. Next, we have a proclamation for the month of the military child, which Mr. McOsker is going to read for us.
Yes, I have the opportunity every year to read. Is there any, so we're on a roll. Is there any military children out there? Raise your hand. Any military grew up? Okay. I know there's plenty of military out there, prior service and retirees, but okay. A proclamation to designate April 2018 as the month of the military child, whereas Stafford County is proud to be home to many children whose parents serve in the military station throughout the local region, and whereas April has been designated by the Virginia Department of Education as Month of the Military Child, which is a special month to recognize and pay tribute to military members and their children for the daily sacrifices and for their commitment, courage, and unconditional support of our armed forces. And whereas Virginia has one of the highest numbers of military school-aged children in the nation and is committed to being an active participant in the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children, which facilitates military children transitioning in school systems across state lines. And whereas the children of our service members continue to make significant contributions to the schools, communities, the nation, and our Commonwealth, despite prolonged and repeated absences of one or both parents. Whereas all Virginia public schools remain committed to the care and education of the children of the men and women in our armed forces, and whereas by partnering with school liaison officers, military leaders, educators, and community organizers, VEDO provides the unique support needed for military service members and their families during all stages of transition and deployment. And whereas Month of the Military Child reaffirms our commitment to ensuring excellence in schools, child care, and youth services to military children who face unique challenges that other children their age never experience. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Stafford County School Board hereby designates April 2018 as the Month of the Military Child.
Thank you, Mr. McOsker, and there's lots of military children in our school. They're probably home doing homework, getting ready for that spring break coming up.
That's right.
That brings us to special presentations, and we are happy tonight to welcome Mrs. Karen Bingham, the coordinator of the Band Together to Fight Hunger, our famous November event, and the drum majors from all of our schools. So come on down.
Good evening, Chairman Healy, Vice Chairman Kosker, members of the board, and Dr. Benson. My name is Jacob Zimmerman. I'm joined here this evening with my fellow drum majors, Caroline Bingham from Mountain View, Tori Cruz from North Stafford, and Nicholas Alford and Michelle Soley from Stafford High School. We wish our Brookpoint peers good luck as they're currently performing for their Virginia Band Orchestra Directors Association assessment right now. We're here this evening to thank you for once again supporting Band Together to Fight Hunger.
Band Together to Fight Hunger 2017 was a huge success thanks to our incredible community citizens and business partners. We would like to thank all who attended or who dropped off food and donations prior to the event. We are very excited to share we once again had incredible support from our community business partners that included donations for concessions, free Chick-fil-A sandwich coupons, and free appetizer coupons from Outback. Additionally, we received cash donations totaling $14,900 from the following donors: Corp Solutions, Dr. Elizabeth Attreed, Kohl's Cares for Kids, Pancho Villa, Chick-fil-A, Sam's Pizza, Roberson's Music, KBI Music, Rouse Center, McDonald's, High Note Trips, and Weiss, and all 3 of our Stafford Walmarts.
Donations from our businesses donors provided 29,800 meals for our community directly to the Fredericksburg Regional Food Bank. We would also like to thank our Stafford County who attended in large numbers despite the rain. With their help, we collected $1,179. That equates to an additional 2,359 meals for our community. During the course of the event, with the help of our band booster families, we loaded 3,427 pounds of food onto the semi-truck. The donations of the non-perishable food provided an additional 4,112.4 meals for the Fredericksburg Regional Food Bank. Band Together 2017 provided a unique opportunity for our community to celebrate both our Stafford County High School marching bands and our commitment to the hungry citizens right here in our surrounding communities.
The grand finale, consisting of 427 Stafford County band students, was the highlight of the evening. This was a chance for all of us to come together and perform God Bless America for our own community.
Tonight we are very proud to present our final check with you for the Fredericksburg Regional Food Bank to Mr. Rollins and Mrs. Klein. We are thrilled to share that Band Together 2017 provided 35,069 meals for the Fredericksburg Regional Food Bank. We are sure you will agree our band programs are making a huge difference in our community. Thank you for continuing to support and fund music programs in our schools. We look forward to welcoming everyone back to Mountain View High School for Band Together 2018 on November 5th.
Thank you. We'll mark our calendars. Thank you all for joining us this evening. That brings us to citizen comments. Individuals wishing to comment at this time may do so by responding to the general invitation of the chairman. Speakers shall identify themselves by name, address, and organizational affiliation if the spokesperson represents an organization. Speakers shall also announce the purpose/topic of their comments. 3 minutes shall be allotted to speakers. The chairman reserves the right to restrict the total citizen comment received at any particular meeting to a predetermined maximum number of minutes with the approval of the board. Citizen comment which is profane, abusive, or which threatens imminent physical harm shall be ruled out of order by the chairman. Although the board provides the opportunity for citizen comment, individuals wishing to register complaints against division employees or division programs, services, or activities may also utilize the procedures outlined in Stafford County Public School Policy 1113, Public Complaints. No one is signed up to speak to the board. I think that's a first, but anyone that is interested in speaking is welcome to come down. All right. I see Mr. Hayes is jumping up there because we almost closed it. He didn't get here fast enough last time. We'll let Mr. Hayes go first tonight. Thank you. And because you didn't sign up ahead of time, there is a sign-up sheet. Would you sign up after you finish?
I sure will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Andy Hayes. I'm president of the Stafford Education Association. Thank you to the board and Dr. Benson. Last school board meeting, I suggested to the school board and to Dr. Benson to be conservative with their approach to the budget. SEA would like again to suggest to this board that any overreach of spending at this time will negatively affect the overall tone of employees this year and into next. If the budget does not allow, or if this board votes for a budget that does not include a 2.5% raise for all employees, the Stafford Education Association believes this will negatively affect the morale of all employees. With the news of Dr. Benson's leaving, many feel the purchase of the Summer Institute's computer hardware at a cost of $125,000 might fall under the realms of undue future budget restraints. Being present at last week's school board work session with the Board of Supervisors, SEA watched, and we can predict that the development for criticism of not using county funds efficiently, that there will be questions concerning this appropriation. The two boards are far apart right now in Dr. Benson and this board's budget proposal. If at a further date this board discovers that funding does allow both a 2.5% increase and support professional development in the way of a summer institute, SEA fully supports a fully budgeted budget in this county and would welcome it. But at this time, until the Board of Supervisors and this board reach agreements on budget, we are worried about the perception that this board will face and the county employees' morale if we are spending on things that don't go towards the employees' raises. Thank you so much.
Anyone else wish to address the board?
Good evening, Missy, members of the board. My name is Christian Peabody. I'm the Vice President of the Stafford Education Association. I would just like to reiterate Mr. Hayes' comments and really resonate with them. There is the concern about the degree of the funding that is going to happen. Like Ms. Decatur shared at the last meeting, we don't know what exactly is going to be able to be fully funded. And that is a major concern, and the salaries came up in one of that. Especially with the Chromebook purchase, if that's something that doesn't have to take action tonight and can be deferred until other things are looked at, that could be more proprietous in the spending, I would encourage that too. For example, the administrative assistant scale, that's something that could be taken care of with those funds right there. That's something that could be proactive and happen now and would have a positive increase on the morale, like Mr. Hayes spoke to, what could be a negative perception if that were to take place. If the Springstead study is going to cost $50,000, why don't we just use that $50,000 as an equitable bonus for all the admin assistants? Springstead was the last company to commit the study, and we already know their system didn't work. So why are we recommissioning them again to say what we already know? We could even combine those funds, that $50,000, wherever it exists, if we need to pull from this funding and the 125, and we can take care of the study and give an equitable morale boost bonus for administrative assistants who are much overdue for that, and then still have some carryover to see what else we can do with that as well. So, thank you for your time.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair. Scott Hirons, 9 Neabsco Drive in the Falmouth District, as we all know. I do apologize. I didn't listen. I don't think I listened to the instructions to speaker comments for 4 years, and I didn't listen tonight. I don't recall if we're not supposed to address anybody directly on the board, and I'm not going to address anybody directly on board, but I am going to address Dr. Benson. Dr. Benson, my phone started buzzing about 6:30 yesterday, last evening, and I thought the world was going to end. Got many texts from a lot of people throughout the community hearing the news that you're departing us, and everybody expressed their sadness and expressed how much they understood what you contributed to this community and to this school division. About 4 years ago, or actually November 2013, I was sort of scared out of my mind. I really didn't know what I had gotten myself into. The school division had some serious management issues, some financial issues that were fairly well publicized. I had the opportunity, the board was kind enough to invite new board members, newly elected board members, into interviews. And from the moment you sat down in the interview, I said, that's the guy we need. I was so thrilled that the board understood that and made their commitment to you and brought you on board. A few months after that, we ran into a couple of other issues. I really contemplated resigning from the school board because I thought it was a little bit overwhelming of what I was up against, and I didn't know if we would make any progress at all. But your steadiness, your calmness, and your action and your plans to deal with the issues is what made me stay on the school board for the full 4 years. So I appreciate your service. I think the community is going to miss you. I think the division is going to miss you. I think the entire county is going to miss you. And unfortunately, the Commonwealth is going to miss you. That's probably as bad as anything, that you're leaving the state and that someone's going to be vying for the fastest superintendent in the Commonwealth now. I thought about today giving a call to Barbara Streisand There was some news a few weeks ago that she had cloned her dog. I was going to ask for the doctor's phone number for where she had that done and ask for a vial of blood from Dr. Benson so he could be cloned and continue in his role here in Stafford County, because he really did make the improvements that he said he was going to make when he came on board with his action plan. The only person I've ever seen come to our interview with an action plan, and he executed it. So thank you very much for your service, Dr. Benson.
Hi, my name is Karen Wazo, and I am a senior from Riverbend High School who used to attend schools here in Stafford County. I am here today as a member of Y Street. Y Street is an award-winning youth volunteer program of the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth that focuses on promoting healthy living in Virginia. I'm here to talk about how Y Street's 24/7 tobacco-free campaign is helping Virginia schools be tobacco and e-cigarette free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Under a 100% comprehensive policy, tobacco and e-cigarette use, possession, and distribution is prohibited by anyone, anywhere, at any time. The Stafford County School Division is doing a great job committing to the health of students, staff, and visitors. The Stafford County policy language reflects what is required by the state, but we would like to partner with you to strengthen your policy to help close any loopholes and become 100% comprehensive. In your folders are copies of the definition of property in your policy. Currently, your language does include school events and indoor properties, but there are potential gray areas. We recommend that the updated policy expand language to include premises inside and outside, whether owned, chartered, leased, or rented by the school division. Include any school-sponsored or school-related event on or off-site. Second, define tobacco product and tobacco use to include electronic smoking devices and products containing nicotine. By including these terms directly in your definition, it is clear to the entire policy that it applies to alternative products as well. Third, require consequences for visitors. Consequences support administrators and staff on and off ground. Fourth, add a provision requiring tobacco-free signs to be posted on school property. Signs help to effectively communicate and enforce the policy to the school and community. Finally, expand the language to provide referrals to cessation resources for staff and students. The 24/7 Tobacco and E-Cigarette Free Schools Toolkit details these resources and makes it easy to offer them as necessary. As a partner and resource to the Stafford County School Division, we have provided our model policy and checklist to provide guidance in revising and adopting a 100% tobacco-free and e-cigarette-free policy. Once you decide to adopt a comprehensive policy, the 24/7 campaign has great ways to support implementing and enforcing the policy. First, we shall provide free signage to all schools in your division. Second, our free tobacco and e-cigarette free schools toolkit will be sent to all schools in your division. Third, we will add you to our official map of 100% comprehensive school divisions. Finally, in your folder, you will find examples of how we can help your school division earn positive publicity for updating the tobacco policy. If you would like to discuss the information I have provided, the 24/7 campaign manager and myself will be available after the meeting to speak with you. On behalf of Y Street, I thank you for taking the time to learn more about the 24/7 campaign, and I look forward to adding Stafford County to our map of official 100% comprehensive school divisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I already did.
All right, anyone else want to address the board?
Good evening, board members. I am a teacher at Falmouth Elementary. I actually reside in Fredericksburg, and I would like to take this time to apologize. I am not prepared. I was not planning to come and speak to anybody tonight. However, I would like to discuss some situations that are going on. As you all know, we do lose over 200 of our teachers last year and the year before. That is about 10% of our teaching workforce. 20% in the last 2 years has left based off of the numbers that are provided by the district. Taking a look at that, we ask ourselves, why are people leaving our district? Some people say it's not because of money. I have to question that now. With that fact that we know other districts are taking our teachers for money, we now need to look at things like the Teaching Learning Summit and these Chromebooks, which we all know that Chromebooks when you look at a computer, is a very nice big cell phone. They are used for surfing the web. I have in my classroom. They're not the best items. They do not prepare our students, and they are not effective for teachers. So we need to ask ourselves, is that money that we are wasting on these Chromebooks truly worth the bang for our buck? They are not. Thank you so much. Oh, and my name is Kara Burford, in case I didn't say that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Come back to the board for board member committee reports. Ms. Egan, do you have any reports? No? Dr. Chase?
Yes, I just wanted to report that the Commonwealth Governor's School Governing Board on February 13th, the director of the Commonwealth Governor's School, Mary Kay Vanderploeg, submitted her resignation effective the end of this school year. She and her family are relocating to Arizona. We've been very fortunate to have her as the director of CGS for the past 8 years. The Human Resources Department for Spotsylvania County has begun advertising for a new director. The governing board will meet this Thursday to appoint people to the interview panel. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Mr. McOsker?
Yes, the Finance and Budget Committee met on March 22nd. Members Hazard, Young, and I were present, as well as most of the other board members here. We discussed the brief update of the FAB-C bylaws, which the Governments Committee is going to take on. Ms. Hazard and Ms. Egan and crew. Take a look at that. We also briefly discussed the Hartwood Elementary School repair wastewater treatment facility, which came in under budget, and we're going to talk about that on our action items, I believe 10:01. So I won't dwell on that. We talked a little bit about the CIP. Well, actually, we talked a lot about the CIP, and then we'll talk about that in our 11:01 and 11:02 tonight. And we also talked about syncing the school board and budget development calendar one more time. I know we've done good work on that in the past, and we have to keep up with all our changing dates and all the Board of Supervisors changing dates to make sure we're synced on that. Let's see. We reviewed also the first and second quarter budget transfers, over $10,000, Mr. Fulmer. And we talked about also doing a budget public relations strategy and an implementation plan. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Young?
Pass.
Okay. Ms. Decatur?
Yes, the Special Education Advisory Committee met on Monday, March 19th. Just reporting that there will be 2 upcoming sensory-friendly performances. One will be James and the Giant Peach, hosted by Stafford High School at 10 o'clock a.m. on May 5th, and Honk, performed at Brook Point High School, held at 2 o'clock p.m. on the same day. Just a little update on the sensory-friendly performances. We did host 2 last year. They are geared towards providing reduced sound, increased lights, open seating with the ability to move around the theater, an area available outside of the theater for breaks, advanced preparation for patrons, relaxed theater rules, no blackouts or abrupt entrances by actors, and some advanced preparation items, including sensory-friendly social stories available in advance. And this year, there's also going to be a website launched, which will include social stories and a storyboard for both performances. So those are great for our students to get in and be a part of that. The remaining The remaining upcoming events brought to you by the Parent Resource Center for the month of March will be 2 more Full Life Ahead workshops. One is March 29th at 10:30 a.m. And the other is March 29th at 6:30 p.m. held in Stafford at the Parent Resource Center. The next meeting of the SEAC is scheduled for April 16th, 2018. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hazard?
Sorry.
We have a governance committee meeting tomorrow beginning at 5:30, and the Head Start meeting, actually that was scheduled for last Wednesday, was snowed out. So they will be rescheduling. Policy Council will be meeting tomorrow instead.
Ms. Young, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to give a shout out to whoever put together the Arts Festival. It was really nice. I was invited, but I was looking for some folks that invited me. I didn't see them there, but that was okay. I enjoyed myself. I saw some pebbles that the students made from Heartwood Elementary and Singing Hawks. I remember my kids were in Singing Hawks at Hampton Oaks, and so it was a really nice evening. So for those that didn't do that next year, make sure you attend. It's fabulous. It's fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to superintendent's comments. Dr. Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A little bit of business to start with. I know folks are wondering about how much time we will need to make up given our most recent issues with being out of school. And I'm really happy to report that Mr. Nichols has looked very closely at the amount of instructional time that we have in our schools and had a conversation with a representative at the Department of Education. So up to, as far as getting to today, okay, so hopefully we don't see any more inclement weather between now and the end of the school year. We have just 18 minutes to make up at the elementary school level. We're fine at the middle school and fine at the high school. So I'm going to recommend to the board that we simply extend one of our early release days. Staff is recommending just do it on June 13th by 18 minutes, and we will meet the time requirement at the elementary level. No adjustments are required at the middle or high school level. Correct, Mr. Nichols?
Sure you don't want them all day?
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. I think there's a lot of teachers and parents and students that are going to be happy to hear that. Is there any objection to the board to extending the 13th, you said?
June 13th.
June 13th for 18 minutes at the elementary school level? So they'll get out at 1:28?
I'd like to add a couple of, no.
Well, I like to add a couple of hours.
You value your life, right?
Yeah,
All right.
I'm not going to get beat up by the
Hearing no
teachers.
objection, I think you got good to go on that, Dr. Benson. Thank you.
Ms.
Did you have
Healy?
other remarks?
Ms. Healy, do we have a communication plan? Because I do know I have gotten lots of emails. Will there be a way we can either run that across the Stafford County tomorrow? Because I'm getting calls about Friday, like.
Well, perhaps we could put that on one of those calls, at least for elementary is the one that I think knows that they're short. And that will not be a problem next year if the governor signs that bill counting recess as
Right.
instructional time. So we should be in good shape next year.
So the second thing that I wanted to speak to is an add-on to the recognition of our incredible librarians across the school system. You know, I personally think no one needs a reason other than we've got really great librarians to visit our libraries, and we appreciate the little chocolate package here. But I would like to just put a couple of statistics out there for the board. The board has invested in renovating some of our library spaces. We've gotten to about a third of the libraries across the division as a whole to move more towards a kind of a learning commons model. It is having a very positive impact on student usage and class usage in those spaces. For example, at Drew Middle School, which was a relatively inexpensive renovation, some increased access to technology, changes in flooring and seating, a really great space. From this year, from the start of school to February 18th, the walk-in participation is up 323%. Went from 973 last year to 4,119 students walking into that space during the course of this school year. Somewhere that we made a sizable investment, that would be North Stafford's new library. In December, there was a 100% increase in student walk-ins for just 1 month, from 2,179 to 4,363 students going into that space to use the space. In February, there was a 158% increase in the number of classes that signed up to go in to use the space. A year ago, that was 34 classes. This past February, it was 88 classes signed up to use that space. So thinking differently about how those spaces might be used and what those design elements would need to help support collaboration, students working together, access to all kinds of information and tools really has had a positive impact on student use of those
It would be nice if we could expand on
facilities.
Stafford.
Dr. Benson, would you mind sharing that with us, whether it's on your Friday night or Friday update or just sending out an email? I'd like to put that on my Facebook page myself. There was some discussion with my supervisor who seems to think that some constituents were not happy about the money that we were spending on our libraries, and I'd like to put that out there and explain why we spent the money
So,
that we did.
one of our challenges, and this is an add-on, is that it's cost prohibitive for us to be able to modernize every single instructional space that we have, right? So the one space that we could modernize in every one of our buildings is our library, right? And it will positively impact potentially every child and every teacher in that facility. So the last thing is hard for me, and I don't typically read written remarks. But I am going to read these because I don't know that I will be able to finish it if I don't read them.
Where are the napkins?
So, I want to say this, that anybody that thinks that this is not hard for me, you are wrong, okay? I feel very connected to this board, to this community, to teachers and students across the schools. And it's one of the things I love about being here. So, it is with mixed emotions that I am resigning as superintendent of Stafford County Public Schools. After nearly 35 years in public education in the Commonwealth, I have decided to bring my career in Virginia to a close and accept a new opportunity with Alamance Burlington School System in North Carolina. I will remain with Stafford until the end of June. I am thankful for having had the opportunity to serve the Stafford community for the past 4 years, and I appreciate the support of the board, staff, and our community. We have exceptional students, supportive parents, excellent school leaders, dedicated teachers, and committed support staff all throughout the division. While I'm looking forward to new challenges as I begin this next chapter of my career in North Carolina, the continued success of Stafford County Public Schools remains important to me. There is significant work to be done in the coming months, including balancing the school board's budget once we know what our revenue is going to be, approving a capital improvement plan that addresses student growth and continued modernization of our facilities, approving calendars, school calendars for 2019-20 and 2021, considering some early recommendations from the Superintendent's Equity, Diversity, and Opportunity Committee. And we're going to make sure those things get done, okay? My goal is, with the support of the board, that there will be no loose ends at the end of June. What we've done here in the last 4 years has been a collaborative effort, okay? It's not about me, and anybody who thinks it is about me is wrong. I think that what we've done because we see value in it together. I am not someone that uses positional authority to affect much in terms of change. So I'm confident that what we have valued during the last 4 years and the improvements that we made, that work will continue. And I will do anything I can do to help you guys in that transition. I thank everybody, partners, our families, folks in the schools, our community members. When we come together, we can really do some incredible things, and that's a really positive, strong thing to say about Stafford County. So, again, I thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Dr. Benson, and we're glad you're still here. That brings us to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve 4 items of consent.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hazard, second by Ms. Egan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. We have several action items. The first is approve the award of a construction contract to Mack Industries of Brunswick, Ohio, in the amount of $415,000 using FY17 carry-forward funds and school capital reserve funds for the wastewater treatment facility replacement project at Hartwood Elementary School. Do we have a motion, Ms. Hazard?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hazard, second by Ms. Egan. Any discussion? Dr. Chase?
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we have a plan for additional inspections on this project, given that it is coming in lower than we expected, and we want to make sure it gets done right.
Okay, is that an affirmative?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is that good enough? That's good enough. Okay, all right. We're on the ball here. All right. All in favor of the motion to approve 10.01, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Chase. I think we're all very happy to have something come in significantly under budget, but it also does raise some questions. So I'm sure that will be well monitored. That brings us to 10.02, approve the award of a contract including 4 optional one-year renewals with Cherry Beckert LLP in the amount of $116,380 from budgeted FY19 operating funds for audit services. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 10.02.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Egan, second by Ms. Hazard. Any discussion? No? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 10.03, approve a purchase in the amount of $125,000 from budgeted FY18 funds for 500 Chromebooks from Atronica Computers, Inc. for teachers attending the June 2018 Teaching and Learning Summit. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 10.03.
Motion by Ms. Egan. Do we have a second?
Second for discussion.
Second by Ms. Hazard for discussion. All right, motion discussion. Let's start with Ms. Hazard, and we'll just work our way down, if that's all right with everybody, so make sure everybody gets a chance. Ms. Hazard.
I guess with this item, it is budgeted FY18 funds, so these are one-time funds. These were, as I understood this item, the Chromebooks are also meant to be in the hands of our teachers as part of our technology program. It was also pulling other computers out. So I know that the delivery vehicle, as I understood it, was always going to be the Teaching and Learning Summit, but that was not always the sole reason for purchasing them. It was also to be getting a device into our teachers' hands and to be cycling out the big computers on the desks. As I said, that was sort of my understanding, that it was sort of a dual purpose, not because I don't feel that approving this one way or the other commits us as well to the Teaching and Learning Summit. I think there's a second piece of that, but that is something to discuss. Those are just some initial thoughts that I have.
Mr. Cater?
So just my initial questions were what Ms. Hazard just spoke to, so that these are one-time funds. They've already been budgeted for last year's budget. They are one-time funds. They don't, so necessarily, for the sake of some of the suggestions by the speakers, these funds cannot be used then to go towards teachers, those type things. Is that accurate?
Well, if we were to put funds towards salaries, or that would be a recurring fund, and that would have to be budgeted each year. These funds are from the current year's budget, and the salaries are already, under contract, and everything is taken care of up through the end of the fiscal year, which would be, would that be June 30th?
Okay.
Yeah.
I may have some additional questions, but I'll let.
Is that, is Mr. Fulmer here?
Yeah.
Mr. Fulmer, do you have anything to add to that? With respect to the source of these funds, these are one-time funds?
So they're coming out of our recurring operating fund budget, but it wouldn't be considered a recurring item, as in we could choose which year we could do it. It's not a salary where once you give it, you're going to have to give it every year. Does that make sense? But it is coming out of the operating budget and would be included in next year's, as the FY19 budget stands now, is included in the 19 budget operating fund as well.
And as it stands now, is that because next year is the planned third year of this teaching and
Yes, ma'am.
learning summit?
The first year of the summit, it was purchased with one-time funds because it wasn't originally purchased in FY17. It wasn't budgeted, so we used savings in the current year to fund that. But beginning in 18 and projected for 19, it's budgeted.
Okay, and these particular funds, if they weren't used for this purpose, would have to be used for something else before the end of the fiscal year?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. Did that raise any more questions for you, Ms.?
No, not at this point, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Young?
Yes, I have a question for you, Mr. Fulmer. So, how long can we wait to buy the Chromebooks? Can we wait like after the budget is passed, or do we have to make a decision?
For this year's budget, it would have to, I don't know what the lead time is on the Chromebooks.
Yeah, it was purchasing 500 Chromebooks all at one time, both phones.
So we need a little bit of time to get that many Chromebooks from one vendor. And there was a set schedule for the distribution to teachers to have them a lead time before the teaching and learning summit. So I don't know when the absolute final budget will be passed, and waiting till that minute then might put us at not being able to get those supplies.
And the second question, is this the first time we had the summit?
No, this is the second year
So
of the
the
summit,
first-
and next year will be the third year of the summit, and should loop in to finish out all the Chromebooks, one for each teacher.
So for the first summit, everybody got a Chromebook?
Correct.
So we're using the Chromebooks for the summit. There's no way that the Chromebooks that we had before could be used for the upcoming one, and then still buy the Chromebooks that are needed, like, after the budget? Just asking.
Most of the Chromebooks that are in the schools right now are specific to student usage, and the Chromebooks that we are purchasing are for teacher usage in order to allow the teacher to not be sitting at the front of the room always, but to actually be up and around and engaged with the student and utilize that Chromebook, as well as it gives them more mobility to go to trainings with a device instead of a piece of paper and a pencil. Or, as we all know, teachers sit at home and do grading. Our student information system and our grade book is an online web accessible thing, so they can do their grading at home and they can fill it in at home. Unfortunately, that's the life of a teacher. It's too bad that they can't finish all of that in the normal working hours.
So
but gives
is
them
this
that
something
ability.
that would add value to the teacher outside of the school, of the classroom, because of the technology that we are advancing, so that they could take their Chromebook home, do their homework,
It's a
and help
mobile
them
device, yes, that's
with grading
Wi-Fi
and things of that
capable.
nature?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Egan?
While I appreciate the sentiments of Mr. Hayes and talking about, finding additional funds for, to basically give to our teachers, especially if this is one-time money, rough math comes out to be $30 a teacher, Our PTO leadership came in here and spoke to the board and implored us to start making more investments in technology for our students, for our teachers, to start getting with the 21st century. So while I do appreciate everything that Mr. Hayes said, if we're going to start diverting funds to reallocate it to teachers, I would like to look at something a little bit more meaningful and significant, and not just do a little bit of a nickel and dime reallocation of funds. So that's why I'm going to support this purchase.
Thank you. Dr. Chase?
I also, in reading this item, saw that it was budgeted by the previous board. I will say that I have concerns about the degree to which technology is being used in our schools. I'm not, as I go and visit classes, I haven't seen a huge number of classes using Chromebooks. And so I think going forward, we do need to do a more maybe data-driven look at how technology is being used in Stafford County Public Schools and whether we need to be purchasing additional Chromebooks or whether the Chromebooks that are currently in our schools could be, some of them could be passed on to teachers. But that's just my sort of 2 cents.
Thank you. Mr. McOsker?
What Dr. Chase said.
Thank you, Dr. Chase.
You were in the previous
And Mr.
board.
McOsker. I just wanted to state for the record that I'm going to be supporting this because of the reports that came back from the Teaching and Learning Summit last year. And I understand, that there are differences of opinion, and there are some that think it was not worthwhile, but there are many others that raved about it, that said it was the best thing we've done in Stafford County for professional development for our teachers. And one of the real additional benefits was that the teachers got to take a Chromebook with them, and that was, to be used, by themselves, whether they're at home working or, in a carpool or wherever they may be. And I think it's something that we can give to our teachers. We can't do a whole lot, but, on this one, we said last year, and can't commit a future board, but at the time, because of the wonderful reviews coming back, the board, said it would make every effort to continue this for the next 2 years so that every one of our teachers would have an opportunity to participate. And I look at this as phase 2 of 3. And unless something comes back after this year's summit that says, that's significantly different result from last year, I will look forward to the day when all of our teachers will have been through it and they've all had the opportunity, hopefully, to get that Chromebook. So I understand the need to look at our spending, and we will have that opportunity very shortly for next year's money. But right now, I look at this as an investment and something that we can give back to our teachers, and that's why I'm going to be supporting it. Any other comments or questions? All right, then we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the purchase of the 500 Chromebooks and for the amount of $125,000, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, sounds like motion passes unanimously. All right, that brings us to our newest action item. And this arises from our work session earlier this evening. That is to grant approval to extend by 30 days the feasibility study for the proposed purchase of the Fredericksburg Christian School property. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Hazard. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Egan. Any discussion? No? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, now, the fun stuff. Brings us to information items. We have 2 information items here. They're both related to the FY19 to 228 Capital Improvement Plan. The first one is major projects, and this is following the discussion at the Finance and Budget Committee meeting at its work session last week. I'm going to ask Mr. McOsker to lead this discussion. And then part 2, Ms. Hazard and Ms. Egan asked to be put on the agenda, so I'm going to turn that over to them. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. As mentioned in the Finance and Budget update, we'd be talking about the CIP. So the bottom line up front is we really do, as a board, and I think all board members agreed, and that we agreed on Thursday night that we need to get a CIP, our priorities, over to the Board of Supervisors on what we need to build for our schools. So I'm going to read, this is well prepared by Mr. Horan, so I'm going to read a little bit of the background information to get us ready. And the school division's capital improvement plan provides a comprehensive planning and acquisition roadmap that identifies and articulates the needs for capital improvements to include new schools, critical renovations, additions, upgrades, repairs, existing school infrastructure, and other essential capital projects. Stafford County updated their principles of high-performance financial management guidelines in 2015, and it also adopted the CIP, the county CIP, each year as part of the approval process. And the current CIP is a 10-year window that we looked at, and that was last adopted in 2011, that 10-year window look. The school board approved the FY 18-27 CIP last year, and the Board of Supervisors reapproved it. Prior to this CIP that was approved last year, every year we'd go forth and we'd have projects on the CIP by date, saying, okay, one school will be built in 19, 20, 21, the other school will be built 20, 22, 23. But last year we came together and said, we're going to bulk these projects together for this new process that we're going to use over at the Board of Supervisors, and this joint CIP process. And that's what we did. So the school board and the Board of Supervisors proposed this new joint CIP process to evaluate, score, and prioritize all large capital projects. The school board approved this process in November, and the Board of Supervisors approved it in July 2017. And the joint CIP process is being used to develop the this upcoming CIP 1928. The school board approved the following large capital improvement projects to be considered for the joint process, and this was the bundling. It was high school number 6, elementary school 18, rebuild Ferry Farm on the campus, rebuild Hartwood, renovate Drew, and additional fleet services upgrades. The joint CIP Technical Review Committee, which was made up of staff members from our shop and staff members from the Board of Supervisors, they rated these projects with discussions, and we also at that time added in the Fredericksburg Christian School property was added in there for consideration. So what happened is the school board and the school staff and the Board of Supervisors staff got together. They rated the projects, and then they came out with here's what we think is important for the 10-year process. Then they had an oversight committee, and the oversight committee was basically the finance and budget committees from both the school board side and the Board of Supervisors, and we were the senior executive oversight where we got the briefings. So, so the school and county staff worked together to develop these some options, but we really never did. We met 3 times, and I always screw this up. Ms. Decatur always makes sure I'm saying it right, but we did meet 3 times, and I was there. I was there 3 times, right, where we went back and forth with things like, you're building a new Moncure. Why are we tearing down the old Moncure? And so why don't we do a renovation of Ferry Farm as opposed to a rebuild of Ferry Farm? And so things went back and forth, which culminated in a 19 December oversight review committee where the oversight or the technical review committee presented here's the list that we tried to agree on, which we did not agree on the 19th. And that list was the Moncure Elementary renovation, the old Moncure renovation, why are we tearing it down and then building a new school kind of thing. Fredericksburg Christian was on there. Ferry Farm for a renovation was on there at this time. Hartwood for a rebuild. High school number 6 and other bond-funded projects. And the one project from the Board of Supervisors was a $66 or a $71 million courthouse that they were going to put in. And the thing to remember about the capital improvement process is there's the 10-year window, and between the projects and the debt capacity, it has to be, for this one, it was about $315 million was that window that we couldn't go over, that amount we couldn't go over. So there is an art to stacking these projects along this 10-year window to make it fit, and the funding body, the Board of Supervisors, wants something before they make their decision on this is what we're going to fund. And that's what we're hoping we can do here tonight. With that, the final submission to the Board of Supervisors, I know Ms. Egan and Ms. Hazard put a summation, and it's a pretty good write-up, I think, to the board, but that's what we're kind of here to discuss. And so before I go on and put my Ferry Farm George Washington District hat on, I would just put that out to the board members to discuss where you want to move forward from this, or do we just kind of put this on hold and move on to the next? What do you? So
well, if there's no objection, why don't we merge the discussion? We'll morph over to you, and then we can come back and. 4th.
Yeah, okay.
Because this really is going to be consolidated, in the end.
No, that's perfect. I just wanted to make sure that merge the two topics, and the bottom line is we have to come up with some agreement. Well, we don't have to, but it would be nice if we came up with some agreement. We should, to send over to the Board of Supervisors and say, hey, this is the best for the school division and the kids.
I'll just speak to a moment. I thank Mr. McCosker. We had a long finance and budget meeting, but this was a topic of serious discussion. In the simplest terms, how I look at the CIP, just like I look at our budget, when we send our budget over, the school board is charged with taking forward and communicating not only to our Board of Supervisors, but to our community, what are the needs of the school division with regard to infrastructure and repair, maintenance, and other items. That is our job, is to say, what do we need and when? We have, if you see attached to your agenda item, our enrollment figures. I believe that what we need to do is, and this, just like when we send our budget across the street, that's our needs. Then we find out, here's how much money you have, and then we have to, within those money parameters, figure out where the projects go, or actually our funding body does. I believe it's very important for us as a board to say, here are the projects, here's when we need them, because look at what's happening to our growth, and here's the optimal day that we want to open it. However, we will be told, just like we are when we get our budget numbers back across the street, well, here's how much you have to spend. But I don't believe that we do you all and our students I think we do you a disservice if we don't say, we really need the school in 20 whatever. Mr. McCosker and I share the same thing of, you get put on the CIP to be renovated or rebuilt, you won't see it for 10 years, maybe 15, it depends. So I believe we need to be very clear as a board when we need these buildings open, and we need them soon. Whether that happens, we want to be part of that joint process. However, I don't believe that we say the best that we can if we keep saying, sure, let's slide it a little. I'm tired of sliding because we've slid for too long, and here we are. I believe we need almost 5 schools in about 7 years. If you look at our numbers, that's what we need. I believe we went in hoping that this joint CIP process would help. I'm hoping that the lessons learned from this year's process will help us next year. But I will say, when we went to our meeting last week, we were really told, well, then what do you really want? All of the projects that we have before us tonight, as discussed at the meeting, are the ones that we've been talking about for, Mr. McCosker, you want to fill in what number? How many years? The addition of Fredericksburg Christian, I believe we've really made our case for why that's necessary. I also think a CIP is a fluid document, and you also have to react to current events. Fredericksburg Christian was not on the market recently. We were approached about it, and I think we've seized an opportunity with less money to try and meet the needs of our students sooner and try and push out this huge population growth in the north on the elementary by purchasing that property. So that's kind of why I think we need a priority list which says our needs, and then we go with, as Mr. McCosker discussed, trying to fit it in within the financial constraints that we have from the Board of Supervisors. I believe they are 2 very important documents, but somewhat different.
Ms. Egan.
I'm not going to elaborate too much more because Holly basically said it all, but I am going to express my displeasure with the way this whole process kind of played out. I mean, when I brought this to you guys back, 2 years ago, whenever we started having that conversation about a joint CIP process, I came here and sold you guys after a 3-on-3 meeting and said, this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread if we follow what we're supposed to be doing and we allow the committee to do their job without board or board interference, this might work. And unfortunately, that's not the way it mapped out. The integrity of the process was severely compromised. I probably won't be voting for this when you all send it over for that reason. I voted against it the last time because it still included Ferry Farm. And again, Dwayne, I'm not anti-Ferry Farm, but as Holly just said, we need at least 7 schools, new. Maybe not so much rebuilding. We've got a capacity issue here, and it needs to be addressed. In the coming weeks, and one thing I don't agree with Holly on is I don't think that there should be a next time for this, and I will be looking at bringing forth a discussion item to consider disengaging from the joint CIP process, to go back to the way we're doing it before, so we have complete control over what it is that we're sending over there without any other influences. We are elected to make these decisions, and the fact that this committee got derailed, and I don't see a whole lot of compromise going on both sides. I just don't see how it's going to work. So I might be alone in this idea. We'll see when I bring it.
Dr. Chase.
So I have been to visit Ferry Farm and Moncure and Hartwood to sort of get a feel for these 3 different elementary schools that I keep hearing discussed in every one of these meetings. And I guess I would just say that having actually been in Ferry Farm and Moncure, it's pretty clear that we haven't been doing a lot of maintenance to those buildings because they were on the rebuild list. And so I kind of caution Hartwood about getting your name on the rebuild list because your school looks pretty good right now compared to Moncure and Ferry Farm.
Mr. Gator.
Well, I think I've said this frequently, but I think that in the first year of the CIP, and Ms. Egan, I don't disagree with you often, but I am going to right now for a couple reasons. I sat on this committee for the duration of it, from the planning of how it was all going to work, to the decision-making process, to the negotiations with the boards on both sides. I do think that it was a good process, and I think that, I wouldn't encourage derailing from that process so soon, because there were a few things that happened that we can learn from for next year. And one of the things that I really appreciated about this process was that we were able to sit down board to board, and rather than just being kind of, I know I apologize for this last time, but my words, this pregnancy brain is real. So rather than them coming to us and nitpicking all of our projects, we were really able to sit down together as equals and say, okay, well, this is something, this school X, Y, and Z, okay, but what about the courthouse? And through this process, we were able, they as a board went back and said, well, do we really need to spend this much money on the courthouse right now? Because look at the school's priorities. And we were able to, through a committee, to tell the story, Holly, that you're bringing forward about all of the schools we need, where we are with the schools. So the process is good, and it can work. And I'd just like to add that the committee was formed of kind of 2, like a committee and then a little subcommittee that rated the projects. And the projects were rated by staff members on our side, on their side, and a citizen. So it was a really fair process the way it worked. And then they brought those projects back, and then we as a committee were able to sit down and make a plan together and talk about the courthouse and the schools and the this and the that. And really where it got derailed, and I'm not going to leave this alone, was what we do with Moncure, the old Moncure. Okay, so and I think that the public really does need to be aware of that was really the confusion, where the whole process got derailed, and why at the end of the time of this committee meeting, when we brought forward a recommendation that was supposed to go to both boards from the committee, the recommendation was really pitiful because it included the school board keeping the Moncure that the Board of Supervisors had in it. Okay, so big mess. We've learned from it, and I would really, it's been a pain in my side, but I would really support this process moving forward because it, like I said, it allowed us to work together and talk about projects on both sides. So, anyhow, sorry for the novel.
Ms. Young?
No comment?
No comment? Mr.
Oh, well, is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Oh, that's great. Well, no, it's all good. It's all good. It's all discussion, and it's all collaboration with the board. You know, the process, I think, is a good process. I think, and I sat in on all 3 meetings. For me, and I got my Ferry Farm hat on now. It's, Ferry Farm had an extensive 150 some odd page evaluation done on it in 2007, and it told this board and the Board of Supervisors that it's going to cost you back in 2007 money $15 million to keep this thing running, and so you really need to do something in the next 10 years. So the Board of Supervisors and the school board, at this time it was the school board, put it on the CIP for, hey, we need a rebuild. And we need to rebuild in 17. So we'll start in 18. And actually, we had it starting in 19, 20, and opening in 21. So that was, 12 years later. And so that made sense. So then we went to this new process where, and I do appreciate the process. However, the new process, and that's why I didn't vote for the process last year, is at the last minute, the one project that was on for next year gets yanked out of the CIP and it gets bundled up with all the other stuff. And then we go over and we find out, hey, listen, it's looking like Ferry Farm is going to get pushed out another 10 years. So 27 years goes by. And in 2007, the leadership of the schools, they're not going to dump a bunch of money into a school that's going to get rebuilt in 17, 18. And now, and they didn't, right? They didn't put any money, not much money into it. And it does look terrible. And then the process tells us that we're going to push it out another 10 years. And so that's 27 years for my kids, in a, air quality, dingy, school. No parity whatsoever for the kids in my school. Oldest school in the school division, a 1957 build. So then we do rate, the technical review committee, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The technical review committee rates it, and guess what the initial rating comes out? The rating comes out with, courthouse number 1, so okay, the supervisors will get a courthouse, and they need it, I'm not sure, And high school, 6 is number 2, and then a close number 3 is Ferry Farm. Very close number 3. And then elementary school 18 is close to Ferry Farm as well. So then it goes back for a recount, I guess, and then it comes back with elementary school 18 and Ferry Farm. So the Ferry Farm is number 4. And the decision was that we would do the first 3 projects. And that's why I said that Ferry Farm. So Ferry Farm ended up getting pushed out another 10 years. And so that's where we said, that is just unacceptable. So that's history as I know it. That's the data and facts as I know them. And yes, we did have conversations about the old Moncure, because elementary school 18 was scheduled to be built on Mine Road, right near Embry Mill. So Bob Thomas says, but it was Bob Thomas in the meeting who said, what are we doing with the old Moncure? It's sitting there. It's going to be empty. But we're going to build a $45 million new school a mile down the road as the crow flies on Mine Road. But we're going to bulldoze this one. Well, yes, we're going to do that because the Board of Supervisors want to do something with that property and make money. I don't know. The last I saw, the old Moncure was worth like $3.6 million, and $45 million is a lot of tax money to get off that property. That data point is still out, as I understand it, about what they can get from the property, and really, Old Moncure is probably off the table, right? As far as we are concerned as a board, that is a Board of Supervisor property. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. So, but sticking to what we have to do. So that's where I'm sitting as the school board member for the George Washington District. Is are we okay with going 27 years on a renovation where all 17 elementary schools, but 2, Hartwood and Ferry Farm, are left for the renovation or a new facility? And so I think we have to do something with Ferry Farm, and we have to do it soon. Looking at the 10-year CIP, and this is what I was going to talk to the board about, maybe we put rebuild/renovation on the Ferry Farm CIP, because I also know from my supervisor that the Board of Supervisors don't want to build a new Ferry Farm because it's not going to really add capacity, and we don't really need capacity right there. I mean, Ferry Farm's capacity is in a good position, and so is Grafton. But it goes back to the statement of, is it okay to keep the kids in substandard conditions just because 10,000 new people are moving up into Embry Mill and they need a new school, or Hartwood? Is that okay? Is that okay with the community? So, and it's not okay with me. I think we need to do our renovation, or we need to do our rebuild of Ferry Farm. And then we also need to take care of our capacity issues that we've talked about, whether it be elementary school 18 and high school number 6 and a Hartwood rebuild, because there is significant growth in the Hartwood, in that west area. So I do agree with that, but it goes back to, is it okay to keep the kids in substandard conditions with no parity? Don't renovate, just forget about them, they'll be fine. Is that okay? That's not okay with me. So I'm hoping tonight what we can do is we can put, I don't think we have an argument on FCS, high school number 6, Ferry Farm, Hartwood, I don't think, in the CIP, and making that window. But what I would ask is that we put the Ferry Farm renovation/rebuild, and it's probably going to be a renovation if the Board of Supervisors have their way, from what I understand. We do that with, go back to the old data of FY19, because that's the only place in the CIP, after doing an analysis, that we have any wiggle room, is that front part of the CIP. Because as soon as we get 5 years into the CIP with the high school build, and that's a $145 million high school build. I mean, it's a lot of money. And the other builds with ES18 or Hartwood, then Ferry Farm will get further pushed out. So that's my concern, and that's my reasoning for pleading to the board for some help for my kids. Thanks.
Ms. Young, did you want to?
Sure.
You didn't comment before, did you?
No, I didn't comment. I just think that we need to look at development. We need to look at our growth. And we need to look at the areas, look at equity. Look at the areas that need it the most. Growth comes later. The necessity is about the children, what's best for the students, air quality. Can they study better in a nicer environment, a newer place? That always cheers me up. So I think we need to look at that. We need to put all these things that we need ahead, be it high school. I think upgrades for schools comes out of a different pocket, because I know North Stafford needs some upgrades, so that's a different issue. But I know the supervisors are worried about their bond ratings, but we need to look at what we need, put it out there on the list, and let them deny our citizens, our community, no, you can't have this because, and then why. But we need to make sure that we put out what we need. We get it on there and let them tell us no. but this is what we need for our students, for our teachers, and for our community. We're here left with growth, and we have to squeeze kids from one place to the other, bus kids half an hour to an hour, hour and a half, to one school to the other, just for seating capacity and things of that nature. We need to do what's best for our kids. So therefore, I believe that we need to put it out there, get it on the list, what it is that we need. And then if they don't want to give us that, then they need to slow down this growth. That's where I'm at.
Okay, my turn. I'm always the one wanting to talk about history, but I'm gonna fast back 10 years. When this board looked at the elementary schools, we identified 5 schools that needed work. Moncure, Ferry Farms, Falmouth, Stafford L, and Grafton. We decided to do a significant renovation for Falmouth, Grafton, and Stafford L. And they came first. We were fortunate that we did have some room in Stafford Middle, so we could accommodate the students in Stafford Middle when the schools were being renovated, so we were able to accomplish those renovations within a year. It was disruptive, but it was a minimal disruption, and if you go into any of those schools, I think you'll see it was very well worth it. The families are happy, the students are happy. You know, it was a real plus for the community. Moncure and Ferry Farms, because of their age, were determined to be beyond a renovation. So we decided as a board at that time that these schools would be rebuilt. I think anybody that looks at the plans for Moncure will see that Moncure is going to be a real jewel in, Stafford County school system. What is going to be there? The space, the building, the opportunities for collaboration, and I know Dr. Benson has very much, had his artistic finger in that, design as well, is going to be a huge difference for the community that enjoys, going to that school. Ferry Farms was last, not necessarily because they were in the best shape, but because at that time, the Ferry Farms community did not want to rebuild. The school board said, we're going to rebuild Ferry Farms, and we're going to give you more capacity because we want to add capacity. So that wasn't their choice. So that's how they got to the end of the list. It wasn't that, there was any kind of assessment as to, who's best off and who's worst off. It was a matter of finances. We wanted to take advantage of the space at Stafford Middle, so we did the 3 renovations, and they were fairly costly renovations. And then we did the rebuild at Moncure. By all rights, we should be opening a new Ferry Farms probably just about the time we're opening Moncure, because Moncure slid. So I feel that we owe it to the families in Ferry Farms, to those students, to that faculty, to the community to follow through on what the school board made a determination. Nobody's come up with anything that I've heard that said life is good in Ferry Farms. Somebody waved a wand and, those problems have all gone away. If nothing else, they've gotten worse over the past 10 years. And as Mr. McCosker has pointed out, we haven't made an investment as a school system in Ferry Farms. So it troubles me to hear that Ferry Farms is on the list for 10 years from now. My gosh, we decided 10 years ago it needed to be done. So that means 20 years. That's a lifetime. It's just, you hear this a lot from me. You might say no parity, no equity. It's not fair. It's not fair that they continue to be at the bottom. And yes, it's not going to be our decision ultimately because the supervisors are going to control it. But I'm going to support putting Ferry Farms as the #1 elementary school in the CIP. Now, it's not going to add, more than 250 seats. But that's 250 seats, that's 25% of an elementary school. If we don't do it, we've got to talk about putting a significant amount of money into a renovation there. For investment purposes. So one way or the other, we need to commit to do something for Ferry Farms. Now, it's our responsibility as a school board, and Ms. Hazard, you're absolutely right. We need to make those needs known. We may not control whether we can, borrow the money, but we can certainly make our assessment and, our position known. And that's something everybody really needs to be thinking. I don't disagree that any of these needs are out there, but I was there, and Dr. Chase and I walked through with Mr. Freeman. I mean, you can barely breathe in that basement. I swear that's where my cough came from. But it's not a good environment. It's really, the classrooms are big. That's a plus. Like I said, wow, Mr. Freeman, these are big. Same thing, you go to Moncure, big classrooms, because back 60 plus years ago when they built these schools, they had more room. But that doesn't do it for the kids, and they don't have. They got in other schools' library bookcases, and they're like, yeah, we got these brand new bookcases, from, I won't mention the school they came from. But yes, it's better than what they had, but they shouldn't be getting excited about secondhand furniture when everybody else got addressed from 10 years ago. So I know, I'm sorry I'm going on and on, but I feel very strongly about this. I think that it's time. The time is now. And if we don't stand up for them, who's going to? Who's going to do it? And I think Mr. Herian will tell you, if we go to renovate, it's not even going to be cost efficient. It's so much more practical, to do that rebuild. So whatever happens down there, I'm for it. Now, the question for this board is, do we want to wait until our next meeting, have a chance to digest this and come back, with some proposals, think about it, because we need to have a list. We need to make our priorities known. Ideally, we do it tonight, but I'm not sure that we've got, enough time to really, think this through, because I think everyone's made good points. And Ms. Egan, I see yours with this whole, committee thing, but Mr. Cater's as well. So I'm torn, because we agreed to this joint CIP. So it's almost like we don't like what's happening, so we want to pull out and go back. I don't like playing that way, because if we've got a problem with the rules, then we need to make some suggestions on changing them, not just
in a marriage now.
Walking away.
Well,
the whole thing. So what does the board want to do? Right now it's on for information. This can come back. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to
Healy, if I could just speak
something tonight, or wait?
If I could just speak generally, I do think that we agreed to a process. However, the process that we agreed to was not honored by either side. We have to be honest. When we really got there and the whole thing changed, we reached out many times to meet, and there was not an acceptance of that particular decision to meet with us. Then we sat at a meeting a week ago, and we're told, we don't know what you want. That's really what we were told. I think we do know what we want. I think we know that at a minimum, these 5 projects need to be on there. What I think is most important that we need to be communicating is we have a capacity problem for elementary in the north and the south, and in our pre-K, and with special ed usage of space. That's just our elementary schools. Our high schools. The document that I've submitted, and if people have not read it, our priorities, and this is proposed priorities, that we would need Fredericksburg Christian to open in the fall of 2019. That's next year. We have optimally, high school 6 is going to be opening optimally in 2024. Ferry Farm rebuild and Heartwood rebuild opening together in order to address the capacity needs in the south, September 2025. Then we follow on with elementary school 18 for the north to fix the problems there, and we put September 2027, but we assume that we get a Fredericksburg Christian purchase. If that does not occur, that number moves to the right 2 to 3 years. We are at a capacity problem, and we have to say that. whether it's in this document or we wait, I was told that some of the meeting today, the Board of Supervisors is ready to approve the CIP without us. I would much rather be on record of what we want. However, I will defer to the board.
So is there a way that the Madam Chair and Vice Chair could set up a meeting with the Board of Supervisors to discuss this?
Well, we have
as soon as possible?
Well, we have a meeting tomorrow morning with the chair, vice chair meeting. So
Can you put that on the agenda and discuss this tomorrow?
I think so. I think we could add. Hopefully, we can put it on. I'm sure we can.
Send them an email and let them know that it's going to be on the agenda so they could.
Right.
The meeting's at 8 in the morning.
Yeah, it's pretty early.
Well, it's okay. When they wake up, they look at their email and it will be right there.
When again does the Board of Supervisors, Scott Haran, when does the Board of Supervisors, when are they planning to approve their CIP? Do you know? Is it next Tuesday?
It's my understanding it's in conjunction with the budget. And so it doesn't have to be. It has in the past been fragmented based on some issues, but the goal, as well as in the joint process, it identifies it to be approved with the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the supervisors by themselves, the chair, I think she could be pretty receptive if it's not a big crowd. So I propose that you all.
Mr. Cater has a comment when you're finished.
Yeah, I
Are you done?
propose to have that conversation in the morning about the CIP.
I would just say that time is of the essence. I know that the Board of Supervisors are continuing to discuss this without any word from us on what our priorities are, and I think that that's a little bit bad on our part that we haven't given them anything up until now. I think that our main hesitation, I'll speak for myself, but I think that the main hesitation with approving something is that we're worried about sending over something that says a rebuild, and them saying that's crazy to knock down a school to rebuild it, which yeah, it does sound a little bit crazy, but again, we need to tell the story. I don't know that they've heard the presentation from Mr. Horan about the percentage and the numbers based on, renovate versus rebuild. So maybe that's something that we need to get over to them to support, if we do approve this. But I believe that time is of the essence, and we can't continue to sit on this.
Well, I do believe that we could send Ferry Farms over as a rebuild or a remodel, to be determined based on the economic analysis.
And I would support that. I would vote for that over the whole rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter to me as long as we do something there. Got to do something. And Mrs. Hazard, I appreciate your list here, but I would say that, in my personal opinion, 7 more years is too long to wait for Ferry Farm. They've already waited 10 years on the list. So I would like to see Ferry Farm moved up, in terms of the, whether it's a rebuild or a remodel, doesn't really matter. As long as we can do something to put some parity, in that school with all our other schools.
As I said, these were based on growth figures. These were not based on our desires outside of that. I felt like this document had to be number-driven. Now, that does not mean that we don't say as a board we value, just like you're saying, but I still wanted people to know numbers aside, focus just on numbers. We're way over capacity when we hit 2025 in the South in every element. So I just feel like we need to make that story known as well, which, Mr. McCosker, I know this may not, that's why for me, believe there needs to be capacity added at Ferry Farm, because the South, when you look at those numbers, it's getting busy down there, and I just feel like that we may need to do that. But I do believe that there needs to be stuff. I also have an old school, not even on water, and so I know that we need to do some things with those schools. But like I said, this document was number-driven. Priorities of the board, for other reasons, I am happy that we would insert, but I still think we need to give them the numbers version, and for our community to know we're running out of time. 2025 sounds like a long time ago in the future. It's not. When we start planning, are we going to use, it's going to get here before we know it, and Mr. McCosker and I will know again. We sit there and go, wow, look what happened. It slid again. Because Hartwood is one of those too that slides around and in, and we're always in the out year. I'm just saying, we need to put our marker down of when we need this stuff being built.
All right, so you want to do something for tonight? Dr. Chase.
I just wanted to add one other comment about Ferry Farm, and this is that I notice which teachers are retiring every 2 years every 2 weeks when I get those reports, and I notice the teachers and what schools they're at. Ferry Farm has done fairly well in their testing and all of this kind of thing because they have veteran, fantastic teachers, but those teachers are leaving. And I have to tell you, when I walked in that building, it did not say, I want to work in this school. And I think this is another aspect of equity that we need to be thinking about. How do we get teachers to want to work at Ferry Farm? Right now you walk into Moncure and you say, do I want to work here? Oh, wait, there's going to be this beautiful new building that I'm actually going to be working in another year. So in terms of the optimal in-service date for Ferry Farm, I think we do need to think about who are the teachers for these children if that school continues to look the way that it does.
Ms. Egan.
The question that I have is going back to what was delivered out of the committee, and if I remember correctly, it was 3 projects. Is that right, Holly? Mm-hmm. 3 projects that came out of that committee. Is that right, Jamie?
3 from the OSC.
From the
No,
from our side, and then that's where I'm a little unclear as to. I don't know how those other. Rebuild Hartwood and Rebuild, Ferry Farm was in the mix. Hartwood wasn't. So I guess my question is what came out of that committee before? I only remember hearing about 3 things: high school number 6, elementary school number 18, and
the courthouse.
And yeah. Oh, okay. So that's where the 3 big projects.
The recommendation was cut off before it was completed.
Okay. So if that kind of meets the limit of what we can afford as a county, then why are we throwing in all these other things if there's no chance that any of that's going to be? I mean. It's
no, there's
6 projects in the.
There's 6.
OSC.
Yeah, there's 6.
The December one, we just never got.
So no, I mean that's a good point. So what I was gonna say though is why can't we, Mr. Haran? Why can't we just build our old type CIP and debt service 10-year chart, extricate the Moncure renovation, get rid of that, from the old. From the CIP, the 19 December OSC, just build ours that says FCS. I think what I'm hearing is Ferry Farm, High School 6, Hartwood.
Isn't that attachment 8?
That's what we did.
Well, I can.
But Ferry Farm was 10 years out,
We operated, attachment 8 is operating
right
with the assumption that we're within the debt limits of the county, and the courthouse is where the county projected. So under those parameters, if I understand what you're saying, Mr. McCosker, you're asking, can we just go back the way we did it without parameters of a debt ceiling and just identify the project very similar to what Ms. Hazard's approach was, identify when the need is. Now, the need for the 2 rebuilds is somewhat subjective, and it's based on factual, too. It's based on some growth, as well as a need to renovate older facilities. So there's some subjectiveness in there that could be construed. Where the high school is built on a growth, and then elementary school without Fredericksburg Christian was built on a growth model that we needed it. So we can certainly do that if the board desires and provide it, but what you give up, in my opinion, you give up, then the county staff will probably pick up the phone and say, Scott, Matt, could you come over and help us figure out you represent the school division's best interest based on what they just gave us, and that'll be hard. That's kind of what we've done in the past. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's kind of what we've done in the past. This is an opportunity. I would recommend that you try to work within the debt window as much as possible based on the scenarios. Now, if the desire is to focus on Ferry Farm, we can certainly, there are some scenarios that we can bring Ferry Farm up very early into the CIP, but what happens, it'll affect the high school significantly, and there won't be anything else that we'll be able to put in the CIP 10-year window, assuming Fredericksburg Christian stays at the beginning, right? So there's just only so much we can put in this jar.
So what, I mean, what I was asking is bringing Ferry Farm, it sounds like we have support to bring Ferry Farm up in the CIP, and can you do that?
Absolutely. But again, it has impacts.
Okay.
There are repercussions, and we can put together a scenario that you just tell us when you would like that. Certainly, there's growth as part of a rebuild. There's some capacity issues that it addresses, Ferry Farm does, in the South, which is needed.
Mm-hmm.
Can't argue that it's not needed. And so, but if we don't include Fredericksburg Christian, then we have a significant capacity issue in the north. So elementary school 18, if you want to say, has to be there somewhere. It could be at the end, but then we'll have to
I think what
operational.
we have, I think we have Fredericksburg Christian. I don't think anyone on the board is saying get rid of Fredericksburg Christian. Just within the CIP window, though, I think we do have members that have moved Ferry Farm up and maybe put rebuild/renovate. I mean, what do you think?
I think we say renovate/rebuild. If we renovate, we're not going to add capacity.
As long as it fits in the debt limit, though.
Well, that's what we need to figure out.
That's my point.
Right now, we can't figure that out.
Well, I can tell you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Cater.
It's my understanding that at the Board of Supervisors work session this evening, they did discuss wanting to have another joint CIP discussion. So I would say that perhaps we could hold off until you guys meet in the morning, and if you can, set an actual date, and then that way we could talk about this debt capacity together and where these things are going to fit.
Well, I mean, I think he could do that without. He could do that tomorrow.
Well,
right?
then you could present. But Mr. Horan, then
come
you
up with
could
some options.
Then you could have a moment to put that together and present it at a joint meeting where then.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. That's all I'm saying is I think we could talk tomorrow morning with the chair and the vice chair, and then as you're putting together, make sure it fits in the $315 million CIP window, and at least. But I think we have
and I can do
consensus that there's Ferry Farm.
We can do that.
Won't happen.
We can do
unless
that
we move it
together.
up.
We can have Fredericksburg Christian, and we can try and align a rebuild. Now, again, rebuild/renovation, whatever you want to call it, there's going to be a dollar figure associated with it. So we're going to use worst case scenario for a rebuild. That's going to cost the most. So we'll position that right after Fredericksburg Christian, knowing where the courthouse is currently, because we'll just make that assumption that it's static.
Yeah, and that could slide a year or two also and help out.
That's right, but we don't control it.
We don't control that.
That's right. So what's going to give?
The committee controls it.
Yeah, well.
The committee controls everything on that list.
That's correct.
But I thought there was an opportunity, or there was a discussion based on perhaps scaling back the courthouse a little bit to free up some other dollars.
Yeah,
that's certainly not in our purview.
We haven't heard anything back on that yet, right?
But I just we'll certainly put that scenario together, but I'm going to tell you that the loser in this scenario is high school 6.
Oh my God.
High school 6 will be pushed. I just don't know how far to the right it will be pushed, but it will be pushed. We've run these scenarios 100 times. We worked this in the TRC, before the TRC, after the TRC, OSC. We've worked all these scenarios.
Okay, can you put it together and then?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Where was the high school 6 when we had Ferry Farms as being started now? Wasn't the high school 6 somewhere in the mid-20s? I think it was always
High school 6 has floated in and out of the CIP.
Right.
And I'd have to go back and look at which scenario that we had.
I'd like to look at that CIP when we first approved the 5 elementary schools, Moncure and Ferry Farms. It's 10 years ago.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know.
2007 was the first time.
The high school was an issue.
It was
then.
not even in the CIP back in 2007, 2008. We had no high school. We had high school 10 at one time. if you recall, and we were designing it for Cliff Farm. So
Scott, I'm going to ask your opinion on this, though. So I understand your opinion on the high school. Scott, do you really believe that the Board of Supervisors, if you put Ferry Farm rebuild for 27 opening, that'll go?
No comment.
Okay, well, that's just that.
I can't.
I don't expect to be here to see that.
Yeah,
I can't
don't
tell
think
you
any of us
that.
will be here to see that opening, but
I have no idea.
So, I think it's the will of the majority of the board to Madam Chair, to have Mr. Horan go back, because the best document to provide, and I think Ms. Hazard's document, the write-up is it's a good document, but I think I think it's a good, because it speaks to the chart. But I think what we'll do is we put this primary document together, moving Ferry Farm up, and then seeing what's going to float out, and then we'll back it up with document number 2 about these are the reasons we're doing this. And then I think that's a solid package to go over. The board will get another chop at it. We'll talk about making sure that, hey, can you put the habeas stopus on the 11th? Maybe we can push it back to the 20th, the meeting at the 20th for the CIP. I don't know.
What document will you have tomorrow morning to show? Because talk is cheap.
Well,
If you have something on paper to show.
Yours is just to set the meeting.
We're just trying to set the meeting,
We're
Pam.
just trying to set the meeting.
But you're not going to have a discussion
We're
on it?
going to ask them not to make a decision until we've had a chance to sit with them and make our case.
Okay.
For our priorities. I would like to see some background on Ferry Farms when we put this together, because it seems that the discussion, at least my perception of it, at the supervisors meeting was, well, we don't have to do Ferry Farms. I don't think they understand that this is a very old school, that almost nothing has gone into it because of the expectation it was going to be rebuilt. Same thing with Moncure. I think over the years, things slid some at Moncure, knowing that we were going to rebuild. So we said, well, we're not going to do this or that because it's going to be a brand-new school. But Moncure is a reality, and a year from September,
they're opening.
We're going to be
Yes, ma'am.
opening that school.
Right.
But now, we have nothing.
Can I piggyback on that? I just want to remind everybody that we were not given an option to do anything with Moncure. That was imposed on us. That decision was made for us.
Well, the decision was made when we decided we wanted to buy new land. When we decided we want to rebuild Moncure on another site, that was the deal. We didn't have any money to pay for that land. So that's when we entered into a memorandum of understanding saying, okay, the supervisors would buy the land, we would build the school. When we opened Moncure, we would give them the old one, which was, traditionally, it would be surplus. So yes, you're absolutely right. It's out of our hands. It is not within our control what happens there.
Oh.
All right. For purposes of our discussion tomorrow, do we have the consensus of the board that the board wants to move forward with the Fredericksburg Christian School? That's a yes, because that's in effect going to give us half of an elementary school for $10 million renovated. That's a bargain compared to some of these other prices we're looking at. All right, so that, and that we are working on our priorities for our other projects, and we will be in a position to discuss them, at a joint meeting. All right, now I know next week is spring break, so people aren't going to be available, but we'll try to set this up the week after next.
Holly will be here.
No, Holly's going to be in
I'm going to be
Holly's always
the land of the midnight sun.
Ms. Healy, is there any discussion that you all may want to raise tomorrow about the Melchers complex? I would just leave that in your all's hands.
I
of
think
whether
Ms. Baumke was going to probably mention that as well.
I'm a list maker. I would want to just make sure in that Fredericksburg discussion we
say that we would, at the time that we make our renovations, if we are fortunate enough to be able to acquire Fredericksburg Christian School, when we make the renovations there, we would like to simultaneously renovate Melchers for the Head Start. Because the plan is not just to use Fredericksburg Christian for the preschool, but to also have a North Head Start site there.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just on that note, I'd like to add one thing that it won't be ready for tomorrow, but I guess when we set this next CIP discussion with the Board of Supervisors, I would ask, if possible, if we could bring all of our numbers for Fredericksburg Christian and Melchers. Do you have those, Mr. Haran? So our numbers for Fredericksburg Christian School, with the addition of renovating Melchers, we have those numbers. They're ready to present, because I want the Board of Supervisors to be able to see that, look at it, know where that money is going, so that they can approve or not. Thanks.
And Dr. Benson, it might be helpful if we could have, have the available on the slideshow we saw tonight on the Fredericksburg Christian, which was an excellent, excellent presentation. I'm sorry they couldn't have the benefit of Matt giving the presentation, but I think the slides will tell a story. We got offered to send them over as long as it's not in spring break week. But I'd like to be able to present that to them, because I think that has a lot of the information that they'll find useful. And that in addition to the numbers. Is it 10.2? Was that the total with the renovations for Fredericksburg Christian? What was the projection?
10.6.
Oh, 10.6?
10.6.
And was it
3.5 for Melchers.
3.5 and 10.6? Well, I know even numbers there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, you remember that, Mr.
I'll remember it.
Okay, I wrote it down. All right, I wrote it down.
I remember it.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, we will put this, let's put this on the agenda for action. We'll combine it into one for action with a proposed priority listing. Does that sound okay for the board?
Priority listing and supporting document, yeah.
And supporting documentation for the agenda, the next meeting, first meeting in
Send it.
April.
We'll give everyone get a chop
If we
on
can,
it.
we'll set up a meeting as soon as we can.
If we have our joint meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if we can, if we have a meeting before, we might have to set up a brief pre-meeting so that we could, have an opportunity
Lisa
to meet
here.
among ourselves
All right, okay.
and come up with that consensus. But I think we're really moving there, and I want to thank Mrs. Hazard and Mr. McOsker and Mrs. Egan for all your work in putting this together. This is not an easy topic, and I think it was addressed.
Miss Egan went through a lot of pencils.
All right, so that brings us up to our
That's
closed
it.
session. The next meeting of the school board is April 10th. We may not need that work session, so,
Right.
we'll let you know if we do. Right, it's a placeholder, but right now, we don't have it. But we do have a motion for a closed session.
I move that Stafford County School Board convene a closed meeting to discuss and consider personnel matters pursuant to the personnel exemption at Section 2.2-3711 Alpha 1 of the Code of Virginia.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're now in closed session, and we'll try to keep it very brief.